Some stories aren't just history, they're legends that refuse to die. They're burned into the fabric of time, whispered across generations, forever etched into the memory of those who dare to remember. This is one of those stories, a tale of survival, sacrifice, and the defiance of men who stood against impossible odds. And at the heart of all of it, a woman, Susanna Dickinson, the lone survivor of the Alamo. Welcome to HEATHSTORY, home of profound, historic, and timeless stories. If you love tales of courage, tragedy, and fate, be sure to like and subscribe. We upload twice a week, bringing you the stories that history refused to forget. Now let's get into it. The year was 1814. Deep in the rugged hills of Tennessee, a baby girl named Susanna Wilkerson took her first breath. The frontier was an unforgiving place, a world where only the strong survived. Life in the wilderness was a relentless battle. Harsh winters, dangerous predators, and the ever-present threat of raiders. But the flickering firelight of her childhood held something else. Stories. Tales of survival, of those who had stared death in the face and lived to tell about it. She listened, absorbed them, unknowingly preparing herself for the fate that awaited her. At just 15, Susanna married Alamo Dickinson, a man who believed the future lay in the untamed land of Texas. Like thousands of settlers, they were drawn to its promise, a land of opportunity, of possibility. But they weren't alone. The Mexican government controlled Texas at the time, and tensions were reaching a breaking point. By 1835, the Texians had risen in revolt, and Alamo was among the first to take up arms. By the following year, war was raging, and the couple, now with their infant daughter Angelina, found themselves inside the walls of the Alamo. The Alamo was an old Spanish mission, its stone walls weathered by time. It wasn't built to withstand a siege, but it was all they had. And it was here in February 1836 that nearly 200 men prepared to make their last stand against the advancing army of General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. The enemy was coming, thousands of them, and they wanted blood. Then, as the dust swirled on the horizon, he arrived. Davy Crockett, a man larger than life, a storyteller, a fighter, a legend. He became armed with his rifle, Old Betsy, an unwavering determination. To the men, his presence was like a beacon, hope, courage, a reminder that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. To Susanna, he was a symbol of resilience. Crockett was already a legend long before he rode into Texas. A celebrated frontiersman, storyteller, and former congressman, he was known for his sharp wit and unyielding spirit. When he arrived at the Alamo, he carried not only his rifle, Old Betsy, but a reputation for fearless independence. "You may all go to hell, and I will go to Texas," he famously declared, embracing the Texian cause. Crockett quickly became a morale booster within the Alamo's walls. He played his fiddle to lift spirits, told tales of adventure, and reassured his comrades that they were fighting for something important. To Susanna, he was larger than life, a symbol of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. When she saw him standing among the defenders, it gave her a sense of hope, as though his presence alone could defy the inevitable. The siege began. For 13 days, the Alamo stood against the relentless assault. Cannon fire shattered the stillness of the night. The walls trembled under the impact. Inside, men whispered their final thoughts, knowing the end was near. Susanna held Angelina close, her heart pounding as she listened to the sounds of impending death. The air was thick with the stench of gunpowder, sweat, and fear. But they held. At 10 p.m. on March 5th, the Mexican artillery ceased their bombardment. As Santa Anna had anticipated, the exhausted Texians soon fell into the first uninterrupted sleep many of them had had since the siege began. Just after midnight, more than 2,000 Mexican soldiers began preparing their final assault. Some hesitated, but those in the rear pushed forward. The defenders were exhausted, unaware that death was marching toward them in the darkness. Before dawn, the final assault began. The silence before the storm. The defenders braced themselves, weapons clenched in white-knuckled grips. Then a sound, a single chilling battle cry. and hell itself descended upon them. Mexican soldiers surged over the walls, a tidal wave of bayonets and gunfire. The defenders fought as hard as they could, using anything they could: knives, rifle butts, even their bare hands. The corridors filled with screams, the clash of steel, the sickening thud of bodies hitting the ground. Blood ran like rivers through the old stone mission. As the troops massed against the walls, Texians were forced to lean over to fire, leaving them exposed to Mexican bullets. Occupiers in the cattle pen retreated into the horse corral. After discharging their weapons, the small band of Texians scrambled over the low wall, circling behind the church and sprinting for the East Prairie, which appeared empty. But it wasn't. The Mexican cavalry charged, cutting them down. Alamo Dickinson and his artillery crew turned their cannon, firing into the cavalry, inflicting casualties, but it was not enough. The Texians who tried to escape were slaughtered. The last Texian group to remain in the open were Crockett and his men defending the low wall in front of the church. Unable to reload, they used their rifles as clubs, fought with knives, with fists, anything to stay alive, but the wave was too strong. Dickinson was bayoneted to death. The last Texian to fall was Jacob Walker, wounded, who staggered to a corner only to be run through in front of Susanna Dickinson's eyes. By sunrise, the Alamo had fallen. The walls were silent, the defenders gone. Susanna emerged from her hiding place, stepping into a world forever changed. The ground was littered with bodies, the thick air with the smell of smoke and death. The Texian bodies were stacked and burned, their final resting place a funeral pyre. And there, among the fallen, she saw him, Davy Crockett. His signature coonskin cap lay beside him, the final remnant of the man who had become a legend. A Mexican officer intervened, ensuring Susanna and Angelina were spared. But she was given a task, a cruel one. Santa Anna ordered her to deliver a message to Sam Houston. Texas resistance was futile. Her journey east was a waking nightmare. The land was painted in fire and ash. She walked among the dead, their eyes frozen in silent screams. The weight of her loss pressed down on her with every step. But as she reached Houston's camp and delivered Santa Anna's message, something changed. The Texians did not falter. They did not break. They remembered the Alamo. That battle cry ignited a fury that could not be extinguished. Weeks later, Sam Houston's army roared those words as they stormed the enemy camp. Santa Anna was finally defeated. Texas had won. In the years that followed, Susanna carried the weight of history on her shoulders. She testified on behalf of the families of the fallen, ensuring that their sacrifices were honored. The faces of those she had lost never faded from her mind. In her final days, as her breath grew weak and her eyes dimmed, she spoke of the Alamo one last time. She recalled the walls, the fire, the battle, and the man who had stood against the tide. Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier, a man who gave his life for something greater than himself. And as long as there were those who whispered, "Remember the Alamo," she knew that neither she nor those who had fought beside her would ever truly be gone.
New Heath Story episodes drop twice a week only on the Jim Heath channel. If you'd like to help keep Heath Story going, consider supporting us on Patreon. Subscribe and like to never miss a story, and we'll see you next time.